Well, Pallo Jordan is ready for us at our Seapoint studios. Let's try him again. We'd just like to garner your initial reaction to the sad passing of Winnie Mandela this afternoon. Pallo, if you can hear me.
Yes, as I was saying, like everyone else, one is saddened by the passing of Sis Nomzamo, but at the same time too, one must recognize that hers was a very exemplary life, which should be celebrated. It's a loss to the immediate family, of course, and one passes one's heartfelt condolences to the Mandela family, especially the children who suffered so much, as well as the Madikizela family for their immediate loss. The nation too has lost, the movement has lost, but I think what we want to take from Sis Nomzamo's life is her courage, her indomitable spirit, and I think also just that no surrender spirit that she displayed during all those years during which she was persecuted by the apartheid regime.
Pallo, what do you think made Mama Winnie such an icon on the continent and the globe? She was a rarity for her times, wasn't she? Being the first social worker to graduate in the country.
Well, she was the first social worker to graduate in the country. She might have been the first African social worker to graduate in the country. I'm not even certain that that's true, but she was the first African social worker to work at Milpark Hospital. Yes, she was an outstanding figure with respect to that also. Her commitment to her people and to the ordinary people, I think, is beyond question. And one will remember her, especially in the years when she was being persecuted in that fashion, how she stood by the weakest, the poorest of the poor amongst us. And whenever there was someone who suffered an injustice, whether it was intended or unintended, I think they could always expect Sis Nomzamo to be there. I remember the instance of a mother here, of a father here in Cape Town, who was trying to get his wife to medical attention, and he missed it by a matter of minutes that the clinic was closed. The person who was at his side that evening, offering comfort and condolence, was Sis Nomzamo, and that's the sort of person she was.
Pallo, more than 20 years into our young democracy, Winnie continues to inspire millions. Just give us some insight into what you think Winnie Mandela means for South Africa today when it comes to the intellectual heritage she leaves us, and what her life and times mean to a liberated South Africa at this point.
Without people like Sis Nomzamo, I don't think we would have won our freedom. It took courage to stand up to an oppressive regime. It took courage to be able to bring up children as a single mother in an environment in which the government, the state, was very hostile towards you and towards your children. I think it took also uncommon courage to be able to endure all those stretches in detention and the humiliations that go along with detention. People seem to think detention without trial is being taken by the police and just being locked in a room. That isn't what it is. It's far worse than that. And Winnie had to endure that time and time again. It took a great deal of moral courage to stand up to that. I think these are examples of strength, of human strength, human courage, and an indomitable spirit which would not be broken despite the worst efforts of the racist regime. They also tried to do character assassination. We learn, of course, afterwards, during the TRC, about how she was specifically targeted by the fake news peddlers of the racist regime and their helpers. We know also about efforts to do the same thing to Madiba while he was in prison. So, yeah, this is a woman, I think, who is of uncommon courage and someone that we can look up to. She became an international icon. Don't let's forget also, at a time when Mandela was not at her side. So she did that very much on her own. She established her prestige and her profile on her own. It was by her own efforts, not as Mrs. Mandela, but as Winnie Mandela.
Pallo, of course, she had sterling struggle credentials that we've been hearing about all day, all afternoon. But one wonders how much of this sacrifice, this great personal sacrifice or contribution is actually remembered and how much of it has been overlooked. And if it has been overlooked to some extent, how should we best preserve this part of our rich liberation heritage?
No, I don't think it has been overlooked. I think everything that has ever been written about Sister Nomzamo focuses precisely on that dimension of her life. One would be interested to look at the other dimensions of her life, but of course, we're not privy to that. And since she's now left us, I don't think we'll ever be privy to that. But the dimension of her life, which involves the struggle, I think will never be lost. It's recorded everywhere, in film, in song, in books, and I think it is sort of emblazoned on the national memory and that of the international community. The recognition she has received, not only on the African continent, but in the rest of the world, I think testifies to that.
Pallo, we've had the passing of many seasoned stalwarts of late. Ahmed Kathrada's passing comes to mind from just last year. And one wonders now how the ANC will actually find direction or find its moral compass now that it's lost so many of its veteran leaders.
Well, we always expected the veterans to pass at some point or another. So we didn't expect them to be with us forever. However, the loss of our veterans, of course, does mean that many figures who could speak with authority and, with a degree of moral authority at that, are no longer with us. But I think the ANC has enough in terms of its own leadership who survive, who will be able to take the movement forward. When Thabo took the baton from Madiba at the conference in '97, one of the things he said jokingly was that he does not want to walk in Madiba's shoes. And I don't think we can walk in the shoes of Madiba and Kathrada and Sisulu and Mama Albertina and others. However, I think we can make our own contribution to the struggle, and I think we have the capacity to take the movement forward, bearing in mind the values that they have handed down to us.
That was longtime friend and fellow activist Pallo Jordan joining us from our Seapoint studios. Thank you for sharing your insights with us so generously on the SABC News channel. Well, now.